In the golden glow of television history, few sitcoms have captured the raw, relatable chaos of family life quite like Everybody Loves Raymond, a show that seemed effortless on the surface, yet behind the laughter, applause, and perfectly timed punchlines, a far more complex story was unfolding. As millions of viewers tuned in week after week, watching the hilarious tension between Ray, Deborah, and the ever-present Barone family, few could have imagined that beneath the comfort of familiarity, some of the show's beloved faces were quietly preparing to walk away. The reasons were not always dramatic, nor were they always simple. For some, it was a weight of creative limitations, the feeling of being boxed into a character that no longer evolved. For others, it was a silent pull of new opportunities, a desire to break free from the identity that had defined them for years, and to prove that their talent extended far beyond a single role. And then there were the deeply human reasons. Exhaustion from the relentless pace of television production, personal priorities shifting with time, and a quiet realization that even the most successful chapters must eventually come to an end. What makes these departures so compelling is not scandal or conflict, but the subtle truth they reveal about the entertainment industry itself. That success, no matter how immense, often comes with invisible costs. While audiences saw a seamless world of humor and warmth, the actors lived in a reality shaped by contracts, expectations, and the constant pressure to maintain perfection. Some exits were mutual and respectful, a natural conclusion to years of dedication, while others carried an undercurrent of unspoken tension. Creative disagreements, salary negotiations, or the struggle for recognition in an ensemble where not every voice was equally heard. Yet, through it all, the legacy of the show remained untouched, a testament to professionalism and passion of those who brought it to life in the end. The story of why these actors left is not one of betrayal or sudden collapse, but of evolution, of individuals choosing growth over comfort, uncertainty over routine. It is a reminder that even in a world built on scripted lines and carefully constructed moments, the decisions that shape its future are profoundly real. And perhaps that is the most powerful truth of all, that behind every laugh track lies a story of change, courage, and the quiet, often unseen journey of moving on to end the history of American television. Few sitcoms have achieved the cultural resonance, emotional warmth, and everyday realism of Everybody Loves Raymond. It was more than just a comedy. It was a mirror reflecting the ordinary chaos of family life, where love and frustration existed side by side, where silence could be as loud as shouting, and where humor was often born from discomfort. At the heart of this beloved series stood a cast of actors who became inseparable from their characters, shaping a fictional family that felt strikingly real. Yet behind the polished studio laughter and perfectly timed comedic rhythm, a quieter story was unfolding, one of change, departure, and the deeply personal decisions that eventually led some of these actors to step away from the world they helped build. What audiences rarely see in the glow of television success is the emotional weight carried by those who bring these stories to life. For the actors of Everybody Loves Raymond, the journey was not simply about fame or recognition. It was about years of repetition, character immersion, and the pressure to remain consistent in a role that millions had come to love. And yet, even the most successful television shows are not immune to time. Contracts expire, creative energy shifts, and human beings, no matter how beloved by audiences, begin to evolve beyond the boundaries of the characters they portray. One of the most common reasons behind the departure of actors from long-running shows is creative limitation. When a character becomes iconic, it also becomes restrictive. The audience begins to expect predictability, and writers, intentionally or not, often preserve the traits that made the character successful in the first place. Over time, this can leave an actor feeling trapped inside a version of themselves that no longer grows. In a show like Everybody Loves Raymond, where family dynamics were central and roles were tightly defined, some performers likely experienced this creative ceiling. The desire to explore new artistic directions, take on different genres, or simply break free from repetition becomes a powerful force that no paycheck or popularity can fully suppress. At the same time, the entertainment industry operates on a relentless schedule. Sitcom production demands consistency, long hours on set, constant rehearsals, script readings, and the pressure to deliver humor on demand. While viewers see only 22 minutes of laughter, those minutes are often the result of exhausting workdays that stretch far beyond what the audience imagines. Over years, this rhythm can take a toll not only physically, But emotionally, even in a positive and successful environment, fatigue accumulates quietly. Some actors eventually reach a point where stepping away is not a dramatic decision, but a necessary one for personal well-being. Another powerful factor behind departures is the natural evolution of personal life. Actors are not static figures. They grow older, their priorities shift, and their understanding of fulfillment changes. What once felt like a dream role may eventually feel like a long-running obligation. Family commitments, health considerations, or simply the desire for privacy can all influence the decision to leave a hit series. In the case of Everybody Loves Raymond, which ran for nearly a decade, time itself became a silent force shaping every cast member's future. There's also the reality of creative disagreement, a subtle but common aspect of long-running productions. Television shows are collaborative environments, and while harmony is often emphasized publicly, differences in vision inevitably arise behind the scenes. These disagreements may not always be dramatic or publicized. In many cases, they are professional negotiations about character direction, screen time, or narrative focus. When compromises cannot fully satisfy all parties, separation sometimes becomes the most respectful solution. In such cases, departures are not acts of conflict but a closure, quiet acknowledgments that the creative path has diverged. Yet perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of actor departures is the assumption of negativity. Audiences often search for scandal, betrayal, or hidden drama, especially when a beloved face leaves a successful series. But the truth is often far more ordinary and far more human. Many exits from Everybody Loves Raymond were likely the result of mutual understanding, career timing, and the simple fact that television by nature is temporary. Every show has a lifespan, and every character arc eventually reaches its conclusion. To leave is not necessarily to abandon. It can also be to complete. The emotional impact of these departures, however, is real for fans. Viewers develop deep attachments to television families, especially in shows like this where humor is grounded in everyday life. Characters become familiar presences in households, almost like extended relatives who appear each evening. When an actor leaves, it disrupts that sense of continuity. It forces the audience to confront the reality that what they see is constructed, curated, and ultimately impermanent. Still, the legacy of the show remains untouched. If anything, the departures add another layer to its history. They remind us that behind every performance is a human being making decisions based on growth, fulfillment, and personal truth. The laughter that filled living rooms across the world was never artificial in emotion, even if it was scripted in delivery. It was created by real people navigating real lives, and that authenticity is what continues to make Everybody Loves Raymond endure long after its final episode aired as time passes. The reasons behind these departures become less about mystery and more about understanding. What once seemed like abrupt exits or unexplained changes now appear as natural transitions in the lives of working actors. Careers in television are rarely linear. They are shaped by opportunity, timing, and personal evolution. Leaving a successful show is not always an ending. It can be a beginning in disguise, and reflecting on the journeys of these actors, we begin to see a broader truth about the entertainment industry itself. Success does not eliminate the need for change. In many cases, it accelerates it. The very thing that makes a role iconic can also make it confining. And so, actors move forward, not away from success, but towards something different, something that aligns more closely with who they are becoming. Ultimately, the story behind why these actors left Everybody Loves Raymond is not a story of loss, but of transformation. It is about individuals choosing to honor their own growth, even when it means stepping away from comfort and applause. It is about the courage to evolve beyond a character that the world will never forget. And it is about recognizing that even the most beloved television families are, at their core, built on real people who must eventually return to their own lives, that in the end, what remains is not absence, but legacy. The laughter still echoes. The scenes are still replayed. And the characters remain frozen in time, unchanged and eternal. But the actors who brought them to life continue their journeys elsewhere, quietly reminding us that every story, no matter how successful, must eventually turn the page as the legacy of Everybody Loves Raymond continued to grow even after its final episode aired. Something interesting began to happen in the way audiences remember the show. Time softened the edges of production realities and replaced them with nostalgia. What once felt like simple casting changes or quiet departures now transformed into questions that fans would endlessly revisit. Why did certain actors leave? Was there conflict? Was there more to the story than what was publicly shared? In truth, the deeper one looks into long-running television productions, the clearer it becomes that departures are rarely about a single reason. They are layered decisions shaped by time, identity, and the invisible way to success. One of the most overlooked realities of a long-running sitcom is that repetition, while confident audiences, can become emotionally exhausting for performers. Playing the same character for years means repeating emotional beats, reacting to similar situations, and maintaining a consistent personality that the audience expects. Over time, even the most beloved roles can begin to feel like a loop rather than a journey. For members of the cast of Everybody Loves Raymond, this repetition may have slowly created a sense of stagnation. While viewers saw familiarity, actors sometimes felt limitation. And within that tension lies the seed of departure, the desire to rediscover unpredictability in their craft. But there's another layer that is rarely discussed: identity absorption. When a show becomes culturally dominant, actors can begin to merge with their characters in the public eye. They are no longer introduced by their real names first. They are introduced as the person from the show. This blending of identity can be both flattering and restricting. It brings fame, recognition, and financial stability, but it can also overshadow personal artistic identity. For some cast members of Everybody Loves Raymond, stepping away may have been an attempt to reclaim individuality, to remind the world and themselves that they were more than the roles they played on screen. There is also the reality of timing in entertainment careers. Television does not pause for personal growth. It continues producing seasons, episodes, and storylines while the actors themselves evolve in real time. What feels right at one stage of life may not feel right years later. A character that once aligned with an actor's energy may eventually feel disconnected from who they have become. In this sense, leaving a successful show is not rejection. It is alignment. It is a decision to move forward rather than remain frozen in a past version of oneself. Behind the scenes, the environment of a hit sitcom is often a mixture of comfort and pressure. On one hand, there is stability, familiar colleagues, predictable schedules, and a proven formula for success. On the other hand, there is a constant expectation to maintain excellence. Every episode must meet audience expectations, network standards, and the legacy of previous success. That pressure does not always manifest as visible conflict. Often, it exists quietly in long working hours and the subtle demand to consistently perform at a high level. Over time, even a positive environment can become heavy simply due to its consistency. Some departures from Everybody Loves Raymond may also be understood through the lens of career expansion. For many actors, television is a stepping stone, even when it becomes a defining achievement. After years on a successful sitcom, the desire to explore film, theater, or different television genres becomes stronger. The creative world outside the show represents risk, but also possibility. It offers a chance to fail, to experiment, and to grow beyond the boundaries of a single ensemble identity. At the same time, it is important to understand that not every departure is driven by dissatisfaction. In many cases, actors leave at a natural breaking point in the story. When a series reaches maturity, writers begin wrapping arcs, resolving relationships, and bringing narrative closure. In such moments, stepping away becomes part of the storytelling process itself. It is not disruption, it is design. And in long-running productions like Everybody Loves Raymond, this balance between narrative completion and personal decision-making is often delicate and respectful. The audience, however, rarely sees this nuance. Fans experience television emotionally, not structurally. They form bonds with characters, not contracts or production timelines. So when an actor leaves, it can feel sudden or even personal, as if something has been taken away. But from the inside, these decisions are rarely sudden. They are often the result of months or years of reflection, discussion, and gradual realization that change is necessary as time continues to pass. The departures become part of the show's mythology. Instead of weakening its legacy, they deepen it. They remind viewers that what they watched was not a static world, but living production shaped by real human beings making real choices. The laughter, the timing, the chemistry, all of it was created by people navigating careers, emotions, and personal growth behind the scenes. There's also a quiet truth that emerges when reflecting on long-running shows. Nothing that is truly successful remains unchanged forever. Change is not the enemy of legacy. It is part of it. Without evolution, there is stagnation. Without endings, there are no memories. And without departures, there is no appreciation for what once existed. The actors who stepped away from Everybody Loves Raymond did not erase their contributions by leaving. Instead, they preserved them. Their performances remain fixed in time, untouched by aging career shifts or creative fatigue. In a way, leaving allowed their characters to remain eternal, forever preserved in the exact form that audiences loved. And so, when we ask again why these actors left, the answer becomes less about controversy and more about life itself. People grow, circumstances change, creativity evolves, and even in the brightest spotlight, individuals must eventually listen to their own need for change. What remains is not absence, but impact. Because in the end, the true legacy of Everybody Loves Raymond is not just the episodes that aired, but the lives that continue beyond them, the unseen journeys of those who helped create a world that still makes millions laugh. Even years after the studio lights went dark, as the years moved further away from the original broadcast of Everybody Loves Raymond, the conversation surrounding its cast departures has evolved from curiosity into reflection. What once felt like unanswered questions now feels more like a study of how television careers naturally unfold. The truth is, long-running series do not simply lose actors. They reach points where lives and stories no longer move in perfect alignment. And in that space between continuity and change, departures quietly emerge. One of the most profound realities of working on a successful sitcom is that stability itself can become a double-edged sword. On the surface, stability is a dream. Steady work, consistent recognition, financial security, and a loyal audience. But over time, stability can also become predictability. For actors in Everybody Loves Raymond, the comfort of knowing exactly what each year would bring may have slowly reduced the sense of artistic uncertainty that fuels creative excitement. In any performance-driven profession, uncertainty is not just a challenge. It is also a source of growth. This is where the emotional complexity of leaving begins to form. An actor does not simply walk away from a job. They walk away from a rhythm of life. Years of routines, arriving on set, rehearsing scenes, interacting with familiar ensemble, become embedded in daily identity. Breaking away from that structure is not a sudden leap, but a gradual internal negotiation. It involves weighing familiarity against possibility, comfort against curiosity, and stability against reinvention. In many cases, departures from Everybody Loves Raymond can also be understood through the lens of artistic self-respect. Actors are not only performers, they are interpreters of human behavior. When a role no longer challenges them, when emotional territory becomes repetitive, or when character growth reaches a plateau, the artistic instinct naturally begins to search for new terrain. This is not dissatisfaction, it is evolution, and evolution often requires distance. Another dimension that often remains unseen by audiences is the emotional intensity of ensemble work. Sitcoms are built on chemistry, timing, and shared understanding. Over years, cast members become deeply familiar with each other's rhythms, strengths, and weaknesses. While this creates incredible on-screen harmony in Everybody Loves Raymond, it can also create a sense of emotional saturation. The same dynamics, the same relationships, the same comedic patterns. What begins as connection can, over time, feel like repetition in human form. Leaving, in such cases, becomes a way to reset emotional space. It is also important to acknowledge the role of industry structure. Television networks operate on renewal cycles, ratings, and long-term planning. Decisions about character arcs and cast direction are often influenced by factors far beyond individual preference. In such an environment, exits are not always personal choices. They are sometimes a result of broader production strategy. Even when an actor appears to leave, the decision may be shaped by a combination of narrative direction, contract structure, and timing alignment between creative teams and performers. Yet despite all these structural and professional reasons, the human side of departure remains the most significant. Actors are not immune to life outside the studio.